Drew, what was it like to come out in the 70s?
Well, it was quite a bit different to it is now. The attitudes in the community and religion and stuff were quite different. In fact, as a 19-year-old gay man, I moved in with my first partner at that stage, and that was in the early 70s. And what living together as we did was illegal up until the mid 1980s, and we could have actually been charged and imprisoned for living the lifestyle we chose. But as a 19-year-old who was involved in the churches, actually Noel we were both in the same church at St Paul's. Our families were both there. We knew each other when we were young and have come back together in later life. But my church made it quite difficult for me and my family. Put pressure on my parents as to what are you going to do to get Drew back into line again. But in saying that, they were quite progressive times as well through the 70s, and we were treated just as an ordinary couple by most of the community in Bendigo. So Brittany and Angel, what is it like? What have you experienced in terms of coming out this day and age?
Well, I think I was never really scared coming out to my family, because we'd sort of had the conversation. We'd seen gay people on TV and movies. We'd had the conversation with our parents about what it meant to be gay, and that, some people love people of the same gender as themselves, and that's fine. So I knew my family were going to be supportive, and I didn't want to make a massive deal of it, so I just sort of sprinkled it into a conversation one day and then kept talking, sort of as like if I don't give you the time to react, maybe you never will. Yeah. But the sort of school was a lot more nerve-wracking. I don't know if you experienced the same thing.
Yeah, school as a whole is pretty good. It's only actually one person, which is my friend. Love that. But yeah, school's been really supportive. Family's been supportive. Only a few know, because my family is quite small. The ones that don't know me don't know it because they just don't know me in general.
Yeah. A lot of my extended family don't know, because I'm sort of like, I see you once a year and I don't really bring my partner to stuff, so sort of I'm not going to sprinkle that in because it's just not relevant. Like, you don't need to know that about me.
Yeah, and like how I found out, I thought it was just a part of autism or just a personality thing, and my friend in year 7 was like, no, I think you might be gay or bi or, something in that LGBT spectrum. And it made a lot more sense. And how I told my mum, we were watching the Ellen DeGeneres special on Netflix. And I was just like, so am I. And mum called me a weirdo, but she apparently, because it was bad timing. It wasn't bad timing. The Queen was right there on TV. Yeah, that's another story. But yeah, my family's been supportive. My friends have been supportive for the most part, just that one friend. But yeah, how was being a priest and being gay? Like, how do you balance that?
Well, that is so easy for me. Because when I realised I was gay, and of course I was a lot older, I'd been a celibate priest. I hadn't married or had any relationship whatsoever. Once I realised it, I had this terrific feeling of that's who I am, and this enormous feeling of freedom. And I didn't know I wasn't free. And for me particularly, I thought, I'm now spiritually, physically, mentally, and emotionally, the whole lot, I now know who Noel is. This is who I am. This is who God created. This is who God loves, or else he wouldn't have created me, because he doesn't create shit.
Yeah.
And I just thought, and so it just all fitted together. For some clergy, it hasn't been quite as easy for them accepting me. In fact, that's an understatement.
Yeah.
And there was a couple at a meeting once who were looking at me a bit strange, and so I just sort of turned to them and went and just kept on talking. But apart from that, I haven't found it hard. The balance is it's like everything has come together. And this is me, I'm loved, I mean, I'm loved by Drew, and I now know how I can fully love myself because I know who I am. Yeah, so how did you go loving yourself?
At the start, I was very like, because when you first come out, you want to love yourself, but then you're also scared and all these other emotions. And sometimes I would let people, take me down, especially if it's like a person really close to you. But now I'm just kind of like, stuff them, this is me. If you don't like it, there you go. Like, I really don't care. I'm very open about my sexuality. I've always been, but even more so now. Like, I don't even let the little voices in class stop me. Like, just.
Good.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
So like I was saying, I've never made it like a big thing to come out to my family. I don't tend to make it a big thing to come out to people in my life, but I don't really make any effort to hide anything about myself. It's just sort of, if it comes up, it comes up. Like, I was speaking to my godmother like 3 weeks ago, and I mentioned something about, well, like, as a queer young person, and she sort of went, wait, are you? And I was like, yeah, did I not ever come out to you? Oh, sorry about that. But sort of like when I was coming out when I was younger and I was starting to question things, I knew I had friends who were queer, so I sort of knew that they'd be okay with it. But I was sort of, well, am I just feeling this way because my friends are coming out? And sort of it was a real journey exploring in myself and just trying to be like, that's who you are. It's okay to be that person, like, and get through that enough to be able to tell other people that that's who I was.
And isn't it sad that we have to go through this coming out process like this, that we feel the need to, when straight people don't have to say, hey, I'm heterosexual, and be accepted by family and friends and stuff, and yet we've still got this
memes at the moment,
this
like,
stigma.
when did you know you were cisgender? Like,
Yeah.
when,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone sort of figures it out at a different time in their life. I mean, I was quite young because I know I sort of started thinking about it because my friends were starting to talk about it and come out to me. And I was kind of researching things to get to understand what they were telling me better and kind of going, oh, hang on, that's me. It's sort of, I was quite young and still quite young.
Yeah, well, I found out fully in year 7, but when I look back, it was really much younger, year 3. Looking back, but people used to call me gay and I thought it was a bit funny. But it really makes sense, and I would 100% own it now if...
Yeah, I sort of figured out the label I was comfortable with for myself when I was about 14, but I mean, Noel, you didn't realise you were gay until you were sort of early 60s, 63.
Which is...
how was that?
Well, I kept wondering when I'd hit puberty, and I found out, no, when I was 63, it was a shock. For about 5 minutes, I really suddenly realised, yes, I'm gay, and I really got one hell of a shock. And I thought knew I was never the brightest, but I didn't know I was that slow. And but then, it was very easy to accept in lots of ways, because I'd known since Drew and I were choir boys. When I first saw him, I had this love for this other choir boy, and I didn't know what it was, but there was this love there. And then eventually, 50 years later,
Slow.
50 years later, I knew what it was, and the only nerve-wracking bit was telling him that, I think I love you, and he said, well, I've been waiting for you to say something, which didn't help much. No, it helped a heck of a lot, really. When the people of St Paul's found out, didn't find out when they were told, none of them really got a surprise at all. And one of the very old ladies said, I think you're the only person who's got a surprise. And that was true.
Yeah, we've all known for a while. We
Yeah.
just figured that you didn't want to say it, but yeah.
Yeah.
So, and the congregation at St Paul's have just loved Noel for years there. And so when we said we were going to get married after the yes vote and stuff, it was like, yes, everyone was sort of so happy.
Yeah.
But we couldn't do that in the Anglican church that hasn't embraced it. So we got married 500 metres up the road at the Uniting Church, and all the St Paul's congregation came.
Like,
so it
come
was
on,
huge.
folks, we're going on an excursion.
Yeah, they wouldn't have missed it for the world.
Yeah.
And it was just a wonderful day. And
Like, having lived through a couple of decades now, would you say sort of communities?
community
Growing
embraces
towards
change and always looks on the positive side. You know, there's always positive things happening in the community, and community grows together, and it's wonderful having that sense of community. And we are, you know, as you are now, very accepted in, you know, in our worlds as we are, and that's great.
Yeah, and the community does embrace it, and part of the church does, and then the rest of the church totters along behind and eventually catches up to find that there's been something else. So we totter along again to find it. We always seem to be about, 500 years behind.
Well, it was great talking to you guys about your generation, your youth.
Yep, and we wish you a wonderful journey for your lives as we've experienced as well. Except for Noel being so slow. Don't be as slow as Noel.
No, I think we've gotten there a bit quicker.
I think you've gotten there. Yeah.
And let me know what happens when you're 63.